This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the host and guest and are not necessarily those of WPSL or WSTU. This station does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without the express permission and written consent of this station. Phone lines are open for your questions and comments. Call 220-9788 or 340-1590. And now, here's your host.
And you're in the studios with the Treasure Coast Car Guys. Steve Frenbeck from Treasure Coast Lexus. Welcome back. Gary's here too.
Good morning. We're both here and present and accounted for. So today, we're going to start off talking a service-related topic that both Gary and I saw this article last week online, and we thought it was really interesting because it's a much debated topic. And pretty much we know that the most important maintenance that you could ever do on an automobile is changing the oil. And there's been a lot of discussion about conventional motor oil versus synthetic oil, and of course now there's synthetic blend oil.
There's hybrid oils. There's just so many oils.
A whole bunch of different types of oil. So this article, was online, and the title is "Synthetic or Conventional Oil? The Verdict is Finally In."
Okay.
So I remember many, many years ago, I guess this was probably in the latter part of the 90s when I was working for a Chevrolet dealership down in South Florida. And we did a tremendous Corvette volume. And at that time, that car, I remember, I'm not really quite sure, so I don't want to misquote what year it was when the Corvette finally determined when you opened up the hood to look at the engine, and it was a plaque, and it said Mobil 1 oil only. If you remember, Gary, because you were with Chevrolet as well. I don't remember what year.
I don't quite remember what year either.
But it was in the 90s. And that was one of the big switches because at that time, really, nobody was really using synthetic oil. Mm-hmm. And this was required oil on a Corvette. And we were told at the time that it had a lot to do with the operating temperatures and, of course, longevity and the high compression engine. And, of course, then in 1989, I believe it was, Chevrolet announced the Corvette ZR1, which was a Mercury Marine built engine. Mm-hmm. That actually had, if you remember, Gary, it had two keys. It had a regular key to start the car, and then there was an auxiliary key that if you wanted to open it up with all 8 cylinders, unleashed the full fury. And at that time, I think it was about 405 horsepower, which today's standards, there's cars with 800 horsepower. Okay,
right.
The Challenger has 800 horsepower if you order it with that specific package. So at that time, I remember that it was required to have that type of synthetic oil, and it was specific. They said Mobil 1 oil because they were eventually the innovators and the leader in Mobil 1. And so, Gary, let's get started. And I know you're pretty much the expert when it comes to service and the maintenance and what have you for both, multiple brands, but basically really Lexus and Toyota. So your thoughts first, and then we'll get into some more detail about synthetic oil and why people should strongly consider it and the differences that it will make in the performance and the longevity.
Preconceived expert, Steve. Preconceived.
I'll put my money on you, Gary. You're the expert.
Okay. Like Steve was saying earlier, back a long time ago, I don't want to give away our age, but a long time ago, I remember when people were changing their oil at 3,000-mile intervals. You had to get your oil changed 3,000 miles.
It wasn't too long ago, Gary.
Well, not that long ago. Then they came out with the 5,000-mile oil changes, and then they came out with the 7,500-mile oil changes, and now they're 10,000-mile oil changes.
Okay, now I'm seeing a commercial on TV with the little Kevin Harvick that says once a year, and I'm going, what?
Yeah, that's
pushing it, I think.
I would think.
And I think, I know Gary explained this very well to me a while back about how the viscosity of the oil breaks down after a while. And, basically there's time intervals and mileage. So typically, if I'm not mistaken, it's less than a year or 10,000 miles.
Kevin Harvick is correct. Lexus and some of the Toyotas now that are using the synthetic oil, they recommend that your oil be changed every 10,000 miles or 1 year, whichever comes first. Reasoning behind that, back to the 3,000, 5,000, 7,500 mile oil changes, they used to use fossil fuel oils. Then they came out with synthetic blend oils, and now they're going to full synthetic oils. They're also designing their engines a lot more efficient. The three main functions that oil does, and a lot of people don't know this, that oil cleans and it cools and it lubricates. That's what it does. It's pretty simple. Pretty simple. So synthetic oils have what they call friction modifiers in them, and those friction modifiers coat the internal working parts of the engine and stuff, so therefore the engine doesn't have to work as hard, and therefore it doesn't get as hot and it stays cool, and therefore you don't have to change the oil as much.
So I have a question about that, though.
Okay.
So let's say you're one of those people that wants to change it once a year, which is recommended evidently with that specific type of oil, but you're an infrequent user. So from what I understand is that let's say you don't start the car but every 3 or 4 days. So the oil has seeped out of the heads, and you have maybe a very, very thin layer of lubrication.
That's why the friction modifiers are designed to stay on the internal moving parts of the engine, so it reduces the friction. And when you reduce friction, you reduce heat. And you reduce heat, you reduce wear.
So also with that said, Gary, what about, if you remember years ago, cars used to have the break-in period, which we're not subject to anymore.
Correct.
Okay, although a lot of people still ask that, by the way. Should I keep it under, 60 or 70?
Yeah,
for the
take
first-
care of it.
Yeah.
Go. I mean, why not?
And we smile and said, no, they don't really make it that way anymore. You can
Yes,
drive it
you
at any
go
speed
out
right
and
away.
beat on it.
But my question is, in the Florida market with the extreme heat, now does that degrade the oil any faster? And is it still the same recommended time periods? And does it make a difference as far as the different temperatures throughout the country, and especially in our neck of the woods?
School of thoughts, the maintenance schedules, the old-time maintenance schedules, they had 2 different maintenance schedules. They had normal driving and extreme driving. Extreme driving was heat-related driving, dusty road driving, hilly, mountainous terrain, stuff like that. I don't believe with the quality and the engineering of the oils, the Society of Automotive Engineers, everybody, the SAE, when you see SAE on there, that stands for Society of Automotive Engineers. They're the ones that have designed the oils in conjunction with the manufacturers of the engines and stuff like that. So I think they're a lot smarter than I am. So I think that they've got a pretty good handle on oil breakdown periods and oil change intervals and the design of the engines. The engines are running cooler.
So question about that. So we talk many times about tires and how when manufacturers design the cars, that the suspensions are specifically tuned to a particular type of tire tread, tread wear indicated tires,
Right.
And different manufacturers. So when manufacturers such as Toyota would develop their new engines, and there's a lot of talk with some of the engines now are turbocharged engines and stuff. Do they design it taking that into account with engineers this type of viscosity and a type of oil that needs to be used?
Yeah, absolutely. They do that. When they design a car from soup to nuts, they design it based on all kinds of different parameters. Engines, transmissions, drivetrains, tires. You mentioned tires. Tires are a big subject here. They're the most important thing on your automobile. There's what keeps the car on the road. The contact is the tire and the road. We have a lot of our clients that come in. We're a very competitive tire dealer. We sell a lot of tires at our dealership. There are these people out there that have these false pretenses about tires, and I can get the same tire. I can go someplace else. I can go to these big box stores. I can buy the same tire. They really can't. Most of the tires are, the big box stores and stuff. When they sell a tire that is specific to the automobile, they call them OEAs, original equipment alternatives, or OEMs, which are original equipment manufactured tires. Tires are like cars. They have models and they change them all the time. So if you run into, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, if you run into a big box store that is selling you a tire that is particularly on your car right now, you can get that tire less expensive than you can at another place because the tire that's on the car, they're discontinuing that tire. So the tire fits the car. Everything is good with it. It was manufactured with that particular tire. But that tire, like a Michelin or a Bridgestone or something, they're always upgrading their products just like cars are and everybody else. So they discontinued this build on this tire right here. So if you have a blowout or a tire problem later on down the road and you want to put that same tire back on the car, guess what? You're not going to find it.
You know, we had a discussion about this the other day with a client about the Pirelli versus the Michelin.
Yep.
And it was really interesting because, first off, he didn't know that he could buy tires from us. And we can't emphasize it enough. And we hear it from a lot of people that they're just not aware that your major dealerships are also tire dealers.
Well, I would think that automobile dealers are the tire company's biggest customer.
Well, actually, they are, and it's really interesting because, for example, we'll take Lexus first, and we can talk about Toyota. But with Lexus, there's basically one tire company that we buy. It's a major tire company, wholesale distributor. And, of course, you know, there's 276 Lexus dealerships out there, and they buy millions and millions of tires. So, you know, but people don't really necessarily know that you can get the tires at dealerships, number one, and number two, that it's extremely competitive and most are price competitive guaranteed. And the reason they don't know is because when people search online for tires, okay, typically your Tire Kingdoms pop up, your Firestones, your Goodyear stores, and what have you, and they're basically all over the internet. And unfortunately, new car dealerships have not done such a great job as far as marketing the point that, you know, of course, when you pull in the drive, you know, they have tires and they have racks and stuff like that. But it's not the internet push. And we know that, you know, there's so much great information on the internet. And that's not to take anything away from some of the other tire manufacturers or what have you, or some of the independents that sell them. But who better to put the proper tires on the car, okay, than the dealership? It's just what it is. So we're going to take a break just for a second. We have a call.
And I would think, too, that while my car is at the dealership, I'm getting better better service. The car's being treated in a different way than, say, the big box store who's putting tires on
Well,
my
what
car.
I will say is, before we get to Jim, what I will say is it's not so much that it's better, okay? There should be a better degree of comfort because the dealerships spend many, many dollars in training their personnel, and there are so many courses that are mandatory by manufacturers, specifically with Lexus. You know, we have mostly master certified technicians that work for us, and it's thousands upon thousands of dollars a year to make sure that they're trained properly. And we send them all over the country to make sure of that. And when you have a specific type car, you want to make sure that the people who are working on the car are specialists in that arena. It's not to say that general automotive knowledge isn't good, but when you take it to one of the tire stores or local places, they're not master certified Lexus or Toyota technicians that have that expertise that really understand what's going on with the car. So there's a much greater degree of comfort. Okay, it's kind of like buying a pre-owned car with a warranty and one without. You know, if they're similarly priced, what are you going to do? You're going to go to the dealership and you're going to get the certified car because it takes the fear out of it.
Right. An
So-
expert has looked at it.
Exactly. So when you're price comparative and the prices are competitive and sometimes better in our store, you have a good degree of comfort that you're going to get the right tire at the right price, and we're going to do the alignment properly and the balancing because we also have all the tools and the necessary equipment to make sure that we do it properly. So we'll take a break. We'll get to Jim from Palm City. How are you, Jim?
Good morning. Love your show.
Jim, let me put you back on hold for just a moment. We're getting ambient music.
I like ambient music.
Yeah, we're getting.
Jim, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
That's much better.
Much better. I loved your discussion on synthetic versus regular oil because years and years and years ago, before this discussion took place, I used to always ask for synthetic oil, and I remember you're right about Mobil 1, but also Castrol had synthetic oil, and I remember I would pay the difference because there was always an additional charge if you wanted synthetic oil back in the 90s and 2000s, and it was certainly much more expensive to have your oil changed with the synthetic than versus now that's not the case today, but back then I remember I would pay I think $20 or $30 more to have a synthetic oil change rather than a regular oil change.
Sure.
You know, Jim, now that you mentioned that, AAA, They did this study that we're referring to about synthetic oil versus conventional oil, and they even broke down the cost of it, and they said that synthetic oil on an average will only add $64 a year overall for your vehicle operation costs. So that's a good point that you made, that it used to be a lot more expensive. You are correct.
Yeah.
Now it's very, very competitive. And synthetic oil, this survey, this study that was done said that synthetic oil is better, and it has a parenthesis here, it says it's a lot better.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yes.
My question actually had nothing to do with synthetic oil. I consider myself, I've bought like 10 cars over the last maybe 20, 30 years, so I'm kind of an expert on buying cars, but I currently have my first lease. Never had a lease before, and it was a 3-year lease with Toyota of Stuart, and I have about maybe 4 months left before my lease comes due, and I'm going through the paperwork. I've already been contacted by Toyota. Do you usually contact someone like 4 months out from the North American office, I guess?
Well, actually, we do.
You do,
and
yeah.
It's not just from Toyota Motor Company itself, but typically the dealership will reach out to you as well.
That early?
Yes, and the reason is, well, actually, it's interesting because at our Lexus store, we start notifying clients at 6 months.
6 months,
And the reason why we do that is, I'll speak first for Lexus and then Toyota. Lexus has an across-the-board waiver program where they were willing to waive the remaining 3 payments for you to get into a new Lexus.
I see.
And it's not like tacking on the payments. It's not adding it into the price of the new car. It is an absolute waiver. So what it does is it gets people thinking about, well, maybe I'd like to replace the car, and gives them a little opportunity to start to digest and think about it, because it's not really a spur of the moment. But Toyota, there are certain models where they have a pull-ahead program where they're willing to extinguish 3, 4, 5, or sometimes as many as 6 payments.
Wow.
So it is not uncommon for certain manufacturers to call ahead. We call that pull-ahead programs.
I see.
So as you probably know, we're in a very competitive market, and throughout the country with different manufacturers, and it's really important to be able to retain our clients in both our dealerships, and therefore manufacturers have come up with programs, and there's sometimes in-house dealership programs that allow us to pull it ahead and extinguish those payments where we're not rolling over anything, and put you in a new car for a similar payment. And I've seen sometimes lower payments depending upon the time of the year and depending upon the program.
Yeah, Jim.
Yeah.
I did that, Jim, with my my previous lease. I had a GS 350, and I was having some medical issues. Plus, I'd gotten a new puppy, and I wanted something that I could carry him around in. Yeah, Gunner.
Priorities.
Yeah, Gunner's not a puppy anymore.
Well, you need a 40-foot tractor trailer to carry him
exactly.
around now. He's huge.
He's a big boy.
Yeah.
Well, I like the car I'm in. It's been so reliable. It's just had the regular routine maintenance. Nothing has gone wrong with it. I'm very comfortable
It's a
with it.
Toyota.
Love the car. But I'm thinking now it's got an option to buy on it.
Yes.
I'm thinking, I love this car so much, maybe I'll just buy it.
Well, Jim, that's a great point, and we see a certain percentage of people that are willing to buy the car, but here's a couple of caveats that I'd like to share with you.
Okay, and I have a couple of questions on buying the car because I've never bought a leased car before, so go ahead.
Okay, so the first thing that you would want to do is make an appointment, or if you'd like, afterwards you can leave a number and I could have somebody contact you, and this way we could set up an appointment. But what you want to be able to find out is, number one, is the value of the car equal to what the payoff is. That's the first thing that you would want to know.
Because I have,
yes.
I have the option here. It gives me the price on what to buy the car for.
Yes.
And I've already looked it up online in terms of what the trade-in value is and what the resale value is.
Right.
And there's about a $3,000 difference.
Right. Well, typically the reason why a lot of people forego buying it and get into a new car, there's a couple reasons. But the way the leases are structured is that with a high residual, which means a lower lease payment, typically at the end of a 3-year period or a 39-month lease, most people are going to turn it in because it doesn't make sense to buy it. Because not only is it a disparity of $2,000 to $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 difference, okay, but you also have to pay the sales tax on that amount.
Right.
That is correct.
And tax and title too, right?
Well, yes, you'll pay the sales tax on the purchase price. And as far as the titling and the tag work, it's really inexpensive. It's usually under $100 because it's a transfer, because you really own the tag. So you don't have to buy a new tag. There's no impact fees or anything of that nature. But you want guidance as far as to see whether or not the car is definitely worth it. Now,
well, let me
yes.
ask you this. I have was a second car, so I have very low miles on it. I was allowed 30,000. I think it was 10,000, as you said, 10,000 a year.
Yes.
And I only have like 20, so I have like 10,000 less miles on it, which also has kind of led me to believe maybe I should buy the car.
Well, you could be right. Okay, the lower mileage makes it a lot more attractive.
Right.
And may I also say that a lot of people who end up buying out their leases, and there's a good proportion of them that do, they also explore, because the Toyota has a 3-year, 36,000-mile factory warranty on all the components. So we also offer extended warranties that you might want to look at, because even though they have amazing reliability, there's still 10,000 moving parts, and every once in a while something could go awry, and it could be an expensive repair. So it's something that you might want to look at as well. We also offer a complimentary, we'll inspect the car for you. So, to make sure that everything is right. But yes, with lower miles, and if the car's really in tip-top shape, and you know the car, it might make a lot of sense for you to buy the car.
It's been garaged the whole time, and it's had very little miles on it.
Yeah, might make sense to certify it as well.
That's true, where you might want to inquire about certification.
What's the difference between certification and extended warranty?
Well, there are a couple of differences. Number one, if I'm not mistaken, it would entitle you to some maintenance, complimentary, number one. And number two, the length of the warranties are different. Okay? And it's a small fee to certify the car as well, so it might be cost advantageous.
And it's a Toyota warranty as well.
Yeah. Right. It's backed by Toyota Motor Company. So, there's a lot of pluses and minuses, but either way, I mean, you got a low mileage car. Which model, may I ask, are you driving?
The Corolla, I believe, in SE.
Yeah, great car. Indestructible.
Indestructible, yes.
And, and I'm sure it's a very competitive buyout. So it's something that you definitely want to go, you want to ask, and, you want to do the fact-finding and make sure, and we're there to make sure you make a great educated decision.
Well, let me ask you this. It has a set buyout price. Is there any room to negotiate that set buyout price?
You and 10 million people have asked that famous question.
Oh, okay.
And I'll explain to you why it's a non-negotiable.
That's
and why,
what I've heard.
Yes.
I've heard it's non-negotiable.
Okay.
I've heard that.
But there's a reason why, and I'll explain it. So when you calculate a lease in the first place, let's say you did a 33-year, 36,000-mile-year lease, and let's say, for hypothetical, the residual value on that lease was at, let's say, 60%. So that means that the buyout is not calculated on the negotiated price, but the buyout is calculated on the MSRP times the residual value. So that means that if 500 people did the same lease, let's say, but let's say the selling price on the lease was slightly different, the buyout would still be the same if it was the same MSRP car. So that way they avoid the negotiation, and they take that away, and they just make it a set price, and they make it a fair price. So if the lease was extremely subvented, in other words, it was an inflated residual price so that the payment was very low, usually under those circumstances, it doesn't make a lot of sense to buy the lease out. But if it was I would say, an average and a fair residual at the time where it wasn't too heavily incentivized, it could make a lot of sense, and it could be a great purchase for you. Because who better than you knows the condition of the car?
That's right. I know the car so well, love the car. It's been so reliable. And as I said, I have very low miles on it.
That's still brand new.
Well, what I will tell you, Jim, is that when you'd like to be able to explore that, I actually, I guess I can give you my information.
Sure.
You can call.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm happy to do it. You can call me at the Lexus store, and I will connect you with someone over at Toyota.
Yeah, I think I have whoever handles your lease return at Toyota Stuart. I think I already have his name and number.
Perfect.
Yeah,
okay.
I think I already have that because you have a fixed guy there, I think, that handles that.
Richard Wagner.
Should he tell him that he
Richard,
spoke to you
I
on
think
the show?
That's who it is. It's Richard.
It's Richard
It's
Wagner.
Richard. That's who I talked to, right.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell him that we spoke. And when you do go in, if there's any questions or anything that we might be able to assist you with, tell him to give me a call, and I'm happy to help any way, shape, or form.
Now, when buying it, because it's not a new car anymore, I don't have to pay any destination charges, do I?
No. The destination charge is a shipping charge that's on the window sticker of the car by the manufacturer. And the purpose of destination, which a lot of people don't know, is that from wherever the car is made to where it's shipped. Okay, and it's a set price. Usually it's anywhere between $700 and $900 for Toyota and Lexus. And it's a standard charge that's incorporated into the sale price of the car. At the time it's new. So, no, you don't pay a double destination charge.
And then, because it's a used car now, I guess you consider it a used car.
Correct.
Well, there won't be a dealer fee, will there, or will there?
Well, typically there is, and let me
fee.
explain why there is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? What we're going to do, we have to, in order to sell that car to you, we have to buy it from the lease company, and then the liability shifts to the independent dealership. We have to go ahead and do an inspection on that car to make sure all the components are safe, the tires are good, the brakes are good.
Well, but you don't have to do if I'm buying my own car, you don't have to do an inspection.
Well, we do it only because of the liability involved. Because we understand that you took great care of it, and we have service records. And plus the fact, if you have a recent service record within the last couple of months and it was checked and everything, typically we can do a waiver on that.
I see.
So, there's a lot of variables, okay? But the reason why we really like to do the inspection is because we're ultimately the seller, not the lease company. And we like to make sure we never want to put a car on the road because sometimes there's things that you might not know about the car and might not see. There could be a bolt in a tire. It could be anything. So we want to make sure that the car is up to snuff, it's perfect, and that when we deliver a car to anybody, we want to make sure it's safe and sound and never, ever have an issue for our clients.
I see.
So that's the reason why we do it. And also there's a lot of paperwork involved with the titling and motor vehicles and what have you.
Oh, my God. Do I have to go through another 3-4 hours like when I buy a new car?
No. When you go to Richard, you call ahead, we'll get you in and out. This will not be a 3 and 4 hour thing, and we're working diligently to reduce that process down to hardly any
God,
time.
But now we
unbelievable
understand, though, why you've got 6 or 4 months out before your lease ends.
Right.
And make all these decisions.
No, but there's really, Jim, it's really a great phone call because there's really so much to think about.
Well, thank you.
And we're glad because anybody else who has any questions about that when it comes to leasing or the lease returns.
Now, not that I wouldn't, because I bought the car from Toyota of Stuart.
Sure.
But I don't have to bring it back to Toyota of Stuart. I can go down to West Palm to Schumacher or one of the other Toyota dealerships.
But you wouldn't
in the
want to
area,
do
right?
that.
I wouldn't want to do that, but I can, right? Because you don't own the car.
Well, that is true, okay, but we find that most people, being that we've taken care of the cars and stuff like that, and we've really given good service in our stores, normally they go back to the selling dealer. Typically what we do see is that people from out of town who are going to turn in their leases and stuff like that. And what's really interesting, we hear from people that are from different states when they go to return the cars. A lot of dealerships won't take a lease turn-in if they didn't buy it there. And we do take them. It's interesting because a lot of the Toyota dealerships outside of the 5-state Southeast area have their leases through Toyota Motor Credit. Your lease is through Southeast Toyota or World Omni.
I see.
So, for example, it would be difficult to terminate it if you were up north. Likewise, people who move from up north down here, some of the Toyota stores usually don't take those cars in return, and the Lexus store, which is through Toyota Motor Credit, we take them all. So I'm happy to assist any way we can,
Your
Jim.
recommendation on going extended warranty versus certified, I mean, not knowing my particular details, but overall, what would you say would be your recommendation, not knowing my specific details on your recommendation?
Certified all day long.
Certified.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And also, when you certify it, they have what's called a wrap warranty for less money. That will extend the terms of that policy as well.
I see.
Yeah, because the certification gives you the full force and effect of the factory behind you as well.
And maintenance perks, too, right?
I
Yes.
believe it's maintenance
Yeah.
first, yes.
Well, thank you very much. You've been a wealth of information, and I love the show.
Great.
Jim.
Thanks so much,
a lot.
Jim.
Sure.
We appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Great call. And again, 340-1590 here at the studios. You can give us a call if you've got a question or a comment.
It's interesting. There was a great article online a couple of weeks ago about lease return, the do's, the don'ts. And one of the things that we impress upon people, because it used to be one of the biggest fears about leasing a car, was that when it comes back,
What happens at
is
the
it going to be
end?
a problem, and what happens? So a few of the things that's really important for people to know, and I'll speak basically for Lexus right now, okay? When you return a lease car, if you buy the car out and you do not finance the car or release that car, you're prone to a disposition fee. Okay? So you might want to finance the car, okay, if you're buying it out. And I would say that probably, Gary, 80% of the cars that are purchased off lease, that are bought out, the people like to have them certified.
Yes, yeah.
Because there's a different warranty program with certified Lexus cars than Toyota or other manufacturers, and it's quite an extensive warranty. So most people who decide that, I have very low miles on this car for 3 years, it's got the safety equipment, it's got what I want, I'm going to bring it back, and we offer a certification process. It gives them an amazing warranty and also gives them 2 years of complimentary maintenance. And we find that the people who are buying them out typically want to have the car certified.
Yeah. I was
Now-
looking through our appointments this morning, and I saw that we had 2 of them coming in today.
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of considerations. Why do people buy their cars out or not? Let's say someone had the misfortune where they leased a car, and let's say there was a change in their job circumstances, and instead of driving 12 miles a day, they're driving 112 miles a day, and they're 10,000 miles over lease. That could be a huge penalty as far as mileage, so sometimes it makes a lot of sense just to buy the car out, because when you figure the buyout and you figure the mileage penalties, it might make more sense to just buy the car and keep it, or
Yep.
even certify it at that time too, or get an extended warranty.
That's
So
exactly what happened with Sharon's
Yeah.
daughter. She had a
Right.
change in circumstances and
Sure.
stuff, and instead of her driving around, around the block to go to work, now she's driving all over the place, and she has a lease car, and she's already at her mileage or over her mileage, so we decided that, when the lease term comes up, she's just going to purchase the car, and then that way it'll go away.
I could speak to that issue because years ago, my wife, we leased her a Lexus IS, and about 1 month into the lease, her mom got sick. And we did a 15,000 mile year lease, and in 8 months, she had 30,000 miles on the car. So, fortunately, because of the resale value, we were able to kind of get out of the car with least amount of damage. But the bottom line is, sometimes that does happen, and you can't predict what the future holds sometimes, and sometimes you're prone to that. But another thing that what we see, the trends, and some of the manufacturers have inspectors that come out that are not very gentle, and they make markings on the cars and condition reports that mark up every little mark on the car. So most lease companies and most manufacturers are fair. It's fair and reasonable wear and tear. But what I would recommend anybody who's leasing a car, and this is the way you take the fear out of it completely, there's a policy called excess wear and tear. Most manufacturers sell it. We do ours through Lexus, and it's for maybe $20-something a month. And basically, it's kind of an insurance policy up to $7,500. So when you turn the car in, let's say you needed tires, because you're at the tail end of the lease, you don't want to put the tires on. You don't have to worry about putting tires on. If you have some chips from the supermarket, or maybe a chip in the glass, or something that they're going to find, or a tear in the upholstery, or the leather is slightly worn or excessively worn, if you had kids and there's carpet stains or something of that nature, this policy will cover all those contingencies. You walk away, you're done, you don't get a bill. Because we've seen people get bills, and we let people know that, unless if it's normal wear and tear, you're good.
Well, now
Because-
you would think that going into a lease, people would go, I'm not keeping this car forever. Really, I'm paying to use it.
Sure.
It's really not mine.
Right.
Take extra good care of it.
You would think.
You would think, but sometimes that's not the case.
But then they find out later that in the long run,
Yes.
taking good care of it would have been a good idea.
But I will tell you that for the most part, and
do.
I could speak for our 2 stores. For the most part, people take care of the cars. Look, we offer complimentary car washes, and we have lines all the time. So
Yes.
we know that people take care of it, and everybody is down to the detail. If you miss a spot, we're going to wash it again. So we know that our clientele base really takes care of their cars. So it's important to do.
now
so.
what if you want to go into a new lease? How does that work?
Well, basically, we would take the car if the lease is done, or if it's under one of those pull-ahead programs. What it's called is grounding the lease. So when you ground the lease, you go on, one of the managers, typically our pre-owned manager, would go online, and they find the account number, and we ground it with the particular amount of miles. So this way it is in the computer, the manufacturer has it, the lease company has it, and they have a record of when it was grounded. So that ensures, number one, that it was grounded timely, okay, and that the correct miles were on there, so there's no confusion whatsoever, and we have a computerized record of it.
Okay.
So what typically can happen, though, is that sometimes when you don't go back to the dealer to the selling dealer. Let's say for some crazy reason you decide that you want to try a different brand. So you trade the car in at the dealership, but it's not a trade-in. It's a lease return. So let's say you're under the waiver program with our dealerships, but you're not at another dealership. So there's 3 payments left. So you are relying on the other dealership to make those 3 payments and then to drive and return the car to the respective dealer to ground it. Now, we will not...
Oh, so it's coming back to you no matter what.
Typically it will.
Okay.
However, you want to make sure that you have both keys, because if we ground the car with 1 key, you'll get a bill for $350 for Lexus. Okay. So you want to make sure that when you are grounding it or you turn it in, that you have both keys. Typically, we look for owner's manuals and stuff like that, because typically if it's a really great car and it's in great shape, we're going to try to buy the car.
Okay.
Okay, from the lease company.
That was going to be my next
And
question.
we're
Where
gonna
does the car
remarket-
go?
We're going to remarket it, okay? If we do not buy it, then that car is broadcast online to our dealer network, and anywhere in the country is free to buy the car at a stated price. And if it's not sold that way, then the car is sent to the auction, and then the car is auctioned off. Now, what I will say is that when the car is in tip-top condition, and a lot of them are, most of them are, typically those are the cars that we want to buy. Accident-free. We look for cars that are serviced by us, and we look at Carfax, and that tells us the whole history, the whole story. But also, we go into, we have a program called Dealer Daily, and it's a national service history, and we're able to see everything that was done to the car, because a lot of our clients are snowbirds as well.
Sure.
So they might have service done in Cleveland, and we want to know that that's on there, because not every store and not every repair agency sends their data to Carfax. Not everybody does.
Sure.
So we'll look at the national history too, and then we make an educated decision if we want to buy that car. But the onus is on the owner of the leased car if you turn it in at a different brand dealership, especially when you owe payments, because you got to confirm that they made the payment, number one, and number two, that they brought the car back to our Lexus or the Toyota dealership with the appropriate paperwork and a signed odometer form and with both keys. If not, it could be a dangerous situation.
It sounds more complicated if you were to go to another dealership, another brand, and then and give the. I mean, it's really not a trade-in.
It's not, and you're entrusting that dealership to do what we would normally do, and that's not to say that they don't do that. Please don't misunderstand.
Well, the words went through my head. Why should they?
Well, there's no vested interest
Because they have
their
probably
interest,
leases of their own.
and their interest is selling you their new car.
Right.
Period.
Okay.
That's why when I said that we take Lexus products that were sold at any Lexus dealership anywhere in the country, we will take it and we will terminate the lease for people. And we will do it online the way we're supposed to. Number one, we feel it's important as a Lexus owner that we offer that service. Number two, we want the opportunity, if it's a really great car, for us to buy it. And number three, more often than not, the next thing you know, they're looking at a new one too. So we want to offer that service for all the right reasons, and if we're lucky enough to sell them another Lexus, great, or another Toyota, that's great. But we feel that we have a responsibility to do that.
And you have a high percentage of lease customers, customers who lease.
Well, it's interesting because our Lexus dealership right now is up to 85% lease penetration. And that's attributable to great lease programs, number one. It's attributed to an awesome service department that keeps them coming back. There's an old expression that the sales consultant and the sales team will sell the first car, but it's the service department, the parts department, and all the administrative and the rest of the staff in the dealership that sells the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth.
The back end of the store.
Well, okay.
But it's beautiful back there too.
It is gorgeous.
Well, let me say, I have really funny to say. So when I first started working at this Lexus store, I remember having a meeting with everybody, and I used that expression. I said, everybody always says that the front end of the dealership is the sales department and the back end is the service department. And I reversed it because I believe that the sales department and the service and the parts department are both the front end of the dealership because, number one, they need to work in unison. Number two, I truly believe that that if you have no turnover, the sales department is continually staying in touch with you. But more importantly, when you have a routine service, and we do our valets and pickup and delivery at the Lexus store, we get to know everybody, their relationships form, and when you go the extra mile and take care of people, more often than not, they are going to trade that car, ground the lease, and they're going to get another one from us.
Yeah.
And we have close to an 80% retention rate. So
in our environment, it's just called one store.
Yeah.
Not the front.
And it really is, it's
Well,
really
you know,
an
the
amazing place.
customers probably spend more time.
They do.
You
It's
know-
a proven fact that 80% of the people that walk into your dealership are coming into the service and parts
Yeah.
department. Right.
Yeah, and they'll be back again
Yes.
more times than to purchase.
And it's funny because it begs the issue that you hear the stories all the time from people. Well, I bring it to Joe Schmo's mechanic because it's $39 for the oil change,
And he's my friend.
and he's my friend and he knows the car. Well, he might know the car visually, and this is not an attack on Joe Schmo because Joe Schmo's probably a really good guy.
Especially if he's the guy's friend.
Right. Okay. But I will tell you that the $39 oil change does not have a Lexus oil filter, number one, or a Toyota oil filter. Okay. And it's not using the synthetic oil that we use. It's not. It's usually a blend, or it's a cheaper derivative of synthetic oil.
Right. We strictly use Mobile One. Mobile One is what we use.
It's top rated, and it's not at the exclusion of other brands. There's a lot of great other oils out there, but we're a Mobile One dealership. We believe in the product, and you hear about Mobile One racing and everything. And,
It's a Lexus-backed oil as
and
well.
it's Lexus
Lexus
backed.
and
It's
Toyota.
that's what they recommend, and that's what we believe our clients should get. So the $39 oil change is not to say we're not judging that, but it's not the same. There are oil filters for $3 and there's oil filters for $12.
Sure.
So it's all according to how well you want to take care of your car. And there's a couple of things that caught my eye when Gary was telling us about this article. Just I wanted to read a couple of things here that really made a lot of sense. Once again, Gary did tell us that it's from AAA did this investigation, and it says here, synthetic is better, a lot better. Synthetic oil outperformed conventional oil by an average of nearly 50% in its independent evaluation, offering vehicles significantly better engine protection for only $5 more per month when following a factory recommended oil change, the organization said in a statement. In the study, AAA found that synthetic engine oils performed an average of 47% better than conventional oils in a variety of industry standard tests. The organization's managing director, who is John Nielsen, made that statement. And he went on to say that with its superior resistance to deterioration, AAA's findings indicate that synthetic oil is particularly beneficial to newer vehicles with turbocharged engines and for vehicles that frequently drive in stop-and-go traffic, tow heavy loads, or operate in extreme hot or cold conditions.
Extreme hot.
Yeah, that's us.
Where's that?
Yeah.
That would be us.
So, and it's interesting because I have a...
Do you think that they'll just push regular conventional oil right out of the market?
Eventually. Well, there's a lot of old muscle cars out there, a lot of old muscle guys that believe in fossil fuels and regular conventional oil. It
They
doesn't.
also believe in jet fuel.
Yeah, it doesn't, and nitrous and all
Yeah,
this other kind
sure.
of stuff. It does not hurt the car, whether you're using conventional oil or have been using conventional oil. It's an old wives' tale. You hear, people say,
Oh, if you're using one, stick
if
with
you're
it.
using
Don't
one,
switch.
you gotta stick with it. Yeah.
Okay.
That's not the case. You can use synthetic oil in a conventional car.
But isn't it true that if you switch up to synthetic oil, you're better served by sticking that way as
Yeah.
opposed to going the other way?
Yeah, synthetic oils, here's another false claim. Well, synthetic oils, people say that cars that use synthetic oils burn more oil. I don't believe that for 1 minute. The engines are designed to burn synthetic oil. They run cooler and stuff like that. So, no, I don't believe that for 1 minute, in my experience.
To sum this up, AAA did say, AA was quite honest about the findings. You aren't going to hurt your engine if you skip the Mobile One of the best known synthetics, but you aren't going to put yourself in the poorhouse if you flip for synthetic either. These oils add only $64 a year on average to vehicle operation costs. And while we're on the topic, Gary, if I'm not mistaken, you have placed for the month of August a special oil change coupon that we have sent out.
I have.
And why don't you tell our listeners what it is, because it's incredible pricing. And if you want to get your car started on synthetic oil, or if you do need an oil change, got to come in for the special.
Yeah, well, not only, it's a $59.95 synthetic oil change, and that's to put up to 5 quarts of synthetic oil in your car, and that's with a Lexus oil filter. But on top of that, we're going to rotate your tires and do a brake inspection on the car as well. Plus, we're going to do a multi-point vehicle inspection to go over all of the safety aspects of the automobile. Our primary goal is to make sure that your automobile is safe when you leave our dealership and you're out there riding around. You can have some peace of mind that nothing's going to happen to the car. You don't have tire blowout, or your car won't start in a parking lot when it's 100 degrees outside and stuff like that with your groceries in it and things like that.
You know, getting back to what you were talking about as far as condition of the car and obligation of people to take care of their cars if it's a lease, what some people don't realize, and this does happen on occasion, that at certain points in the lease, usually within a year's time left, I would say, there are certain models that, depending upon the condition and the mileage, that actually have equity, where you could actually benefit going into another lease by equity of the car that you're terminating. And we see this in sport utilities specifically. For example, it's not uncommon sometimes on a GX 460 lease, okay, on a 3-year lease, to have 3, 4, or as much as $5,000 equity. It's a niche vehicle. There aren't that many made, and they're very much sought after in the pre-owned market. So certain vehicles on the marketplace, and it's just not limited to Lexus or Toyota products, have equity already in that lease because of the type of vehicle it is and the conditions. So it would behoove you to take really, really good care of the car and to make sure that the services are updated and whatever, because when we go out and we look at and appraise a car, we're much more willing. First off, let me say that cars are appraised. These are not wild guesses, okay? All the tools that we use are the same tools that the clients and consumers use when they start their homework, where they want to estimate the value of their car. So whether it's KBB or whether it's Black Book, whether it's any of the other third-party independent sources to determine what the vehicles are worth, it's a guide. And it's funny because most clients always put it in perfect condition, there's nothing wrong with it and whatever. But a lot of times when clients at home go online and use these third-party appraisal tools, number one, they don't put the right information in the right model or something like that.
Or they miss options.
So
that the car
sometimes
or they think that their car is perfect when in reality
Yes.
it's not quite.
Okay, but that's okay, okay. But sometimes they don't put in a lot of the equipment that they have where they're actually getting a lower number.
Okay.
So that's why it's incumbent on them, and we do free appraisals. So it's incumbent on people to allow us to do it, and we share the same information. And then we also, this data is linked to auction reports that show what the cars are going through an auction. So let's say, for argument's sake, a car could be worth $25,000 on average condition and what have you, but you took care of it and it's got less than half those miles, and the car is absolutely perfect, like a shining diamond. That car could be worth $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 more. So never underestimate the value of your car. Please don't overestimate it. but take a realistic approach and use the third-party generators that are available, because that's what the dealers use. But when we see a car that's been maintained really well and it's spotless, and you can see, when someone really took care of the car and it's their baby, and they really, they have pride of ownership, even if it is a lease car. Those cars generally are worth significantly more, and it's a lot easier to get out of a lease sooner if you do take care of it. So we encourage everybody to do the right thing. I mean, we do offer complimentary car washes. Let us take care of the car, and let us service the car under the factory recommended schedules. Because when you miss an alignment, when you miss a tire rotation, we had a client the other day who came in, and he missed just didn't pay attention, and the light was on the whole time, and he didn't want to come in and whatever. And it's funny because we offer pickup and delivery, but he was busy and he neglected it, and the tires had uneven wear. And if they would have been rotated, it wouldn't have been an issue.
Right.
And it puts us in a bad position because we're not really in a position to help them that way. So when you stick to the factory recommended schedule, and it is recommended for a reason, okay, I can assure you that when it comes time to trade, and if you own the car as opposed to lease, you're going to get more money for it. And you're going to be quite pleased that you took the time and the extra care and the synthetic oil changes and, to make sure that the car is clean and the brakes are good and the tires are good and it has a good service history. And also, you'll find that most people who appraise cars, when they are taken care of by the dealer, are automatically worth more.
And we're going to make that process seamless as well. We offer online scheduling of appointments. We offer valet pickup and delivery.
Don't even need to come
Don't
to
even
our
need to come to the
beautiful Lexus
dealership.
store.
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to see you, but if you're, like everybody else, we're busy. We've got things to do. So you just, make an appointment, call us up, or make an appointment online. We'll come to your house and drop you off a new car to drive, bring your car back, do the service on it, clean it, and take it back.
With
It's easy.
zero inconvenience.
Zero, yes.
And we have adult drivers, and they've been with us now for quite a long time. There's no fear. You don't have to worry, and we treat your car just as if it's ours.
Yeah, I get a lot of our clients. They call me on the phone and they go, when the driver comes up to pick my car up, make sure you're sending Tony or make sure Tom comes up, right? Because they know them. They've been around for a while.
Yeah, they're not going out of town before they come back to the dealer, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You don't have to worry.
No, they don't,
So
do not.
moving along, Gary, getting away from service just for a second, we'll go to the other front end of the business, and we'll talk about sales. So, whoops. So deals are so good, they're just right in front of us. So I just want to go over a couple things right now. America's safest sport utility, which is the 2017 Lexus RX 350 or the 450h hybrid. We have special leasing this month. This is Golden Opportunity Month, which is one of the best months of the year to buy a car, and it's through August 31st. So if you are in the market and you have not come to visit us, you need to get down to see us. And likewise, Toyota also has a comparable sales month. Our Toyota store is on fire. We got over 300 cars in inventory over there with over 150 used cars, and there's something for everybody between our two stores. But the Lexus right now, with a small down payment, is $399 a month for the Lexus RX 350. This is in a tremendous car with all the latest safety equipment on it. We have our little 42 mile per gallon hybrid CT200H. That car, you can walk in our dealership. You do not need $1 out of your pocket, and you can drive out for $298 a month plus tax and drive it for 3 years for 10,000 miles a year and get 42 miles to the gallon and drive a nicely equipped Lexus.
Oh, that's a great deal.
It can't get better than that.
Yeah.
There are.
Is that what you call sign and drive?
That is a true sign and drive.
Okay.
You do not need $1 out of your pocket. There's no fine print. There's no special fees. There's no fine print. It's $298 a month plus tax, period.
And it's a great car.
Yeah,
And it's an
great,
amazing
it's a
car
great
for
payment
42
too.
miles to the gallon. Likewise, if you don't want to put any money down on the RX, $489 a month plus tax. Treasure Coast Lexus is located on City of Fort Pierce, just south of Midway Road, on the west side of the road. And if you drive 17 miles south of that to the city of Stuart, Treasure Coast Toyota of Stuart, in the heart of Stuart, it's on the east side of the street, and a big Toyota dealership.
Look
Big
for that
flag.
ginormous American flag.
A tremendous American
Yes.
flag. And we're both ready to serve you and take care of you and treat you like you've never been treated. You won't be sorry, so come see us.
Great. Treasure Coast Car Guys are right here every Tuesday beginning at 11 on WPSL Port St. Lucie and WSTU Stuart.